Good evening and welcome to Encore with Zoe Ryan on Midlands 103. I have quite a fun show lined up for you tonight, from a rundown of this coming weekend's Cronin and Og activities to a play that proves out of boredom can come creativity, as well as a 90-year-old circus performer and a few rumours thrown in for good measure. Later in the show I'll be talking to Maria Corcoran, the creative behind the character Beryl, following her recent performance in Laois. Director Daniel Edgerton will be filling us in on how the search for the cast of his upcoming production in Westmeath is coming along, and after 30 years in the making, Bernard Field is finally bringing his iconic train to Offaly. Now I'm going to start off the show tonight with something a little different, a round table discussion if you will, with David Broderick, Creative Communities Engagement Officer at Laois County Council, Siobhan Boyce, who holds the same title at Westmeath County Council, and librarian at Edenderry Library Claire Gavin, about the free creative activities for children and young people taking place across the Midlands this Saturday. David, could you start off by telling us a bit about Cronin and Og, where the idea for the nationwide festival came from?
Thank you, Zoe. So Cronin and Og is a national day of fun for all, basically. So it's creativity, it's fun, it's imagination, it's whatever you want it to be, and it's basically accessible for all children from all backgrounds, and it's free. And that's why we're all here, I suppose, is just to promote it and make sure as many kids as possible hear about it.
And so, Siobhan, I see that you have quite an extensive layout of activities coming out on Saturday. Tell us a little bit about maybe the ones that stand out to you, maybe that are a bit different.
Okay. So Cronin and Og is just that. It's literally a gathering of the youth. So for ours, we decided we would go for one huge flagship event and some smaller events. So our flagship event this year is our Garageland Galaxies Festival for young musicians, and that's a collaboration with Music Generation.
Okay.
So we're going to be in Dean Crow Theatre all day Saturday with our young performers performing all day. Another one that we are particularly happy with is our Prism and Pride at Heartlands Pride Parade. So the Heartlands Pride Festival is on this weekend in Athlone, and they have an inaugural Pride March. So we have a group from Feroga that have teamed up with Heartlands Pride, and they have done a Creaney project, and they're going to be marching in the parade as well. So that's a particularly good one as well. And also in our public libraries, we have Imagination Station in each library, and then we have an event on in each library as well. And we have a really nice one in Mullingar Library on Saturday morning. It's Music Generation as well. They're just the highlights there. We have a nighttime event as well that's actually very exciting. It's run by Johnny Farley, a spoken word poet, and he is running a spoken word poetry evening in the Yo-Yo Cafe in Mullingar.
Okay.
So that's a Midlands Youth Work venue, and there's still a few spaces left for that one if you want to book in for it, if anybody does, but that's going on from 5pm until 9pm, so that'll be a really good one.
And I know that you've such a good offering across the three areas, but I know that, Claire, you were saying that a lot of them are actually sold out already.
Yes, we have a lot of our workshops sold out already, but we do have a few fun ones still available for anybody. So we have probably my favourite, because I am a librarian, and it does begin with a book, but it's a Dreamcatcher making workshop, and it's with Soul Goodness, and Zoe Ryan is going to host that. So it begins with a book called The Magic in Me, and it teaches children just to find some positivity in themselves, some kindness within themselves. And then from that, they're going to create a dream catcher. And then they can bring that home, they can hang it on their wall and just remind themselves to be kind to themselves every single day.
Something that we need to be reminded of nowadays. Yeah.
So the story is actually quite beautiful. So any parents that want to come along, it actually it resonates with you, so you have that kindness for yourself as well. So that is in Dangan Library and in my own library, Edenderry Library, so you can book in if you like.
And David, are there any of the events that are happening in your locality in the Laois area that you would say definitely try and get your way down to it if you can?
Yeah, absolutely, Zoe. Again, there's lots of them kind of booked out. Our main partner is Laois Libraries, obviously, and they run a series of wonderful events. But there still are a few. There's a singer-songwriter workshop in Abbey League's Heritage House. There are spaces available there. Also in Abbey League's Library, there's a Brickflix motion animation
I had seen that.
Yeah, and it's a wonderful one, and there are spaces there. So that's a really, really interesting one. We also have street art. We have 2 street art events. Again, all these are available online. I'm not going to go through them all, and I don't want to be picking one over the other, but there is wonderful ones. One that must get a mention too is Laois Art House. So our our arts department have a lovely event. It's very kind of holistic, I suppose, calling up Burba on the River Barrow, and that's this a second day. They already were out on the river with artist Donna Wright and Angelina Foster, and all young people are welcome again to that on Saturday in Stradbally.
And that one has quite an environmental aspect to it, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And I mean, the kids love the outdoors. I mean, for me, Creative Ireland, or for Crinan Óg, on the day is to just get kids to unplug from their phones, you know, not to be on their phones, to get out, express themselves. It doesn't matter what they create. It really, there's no one there to judge it. It's just whatever is in their imagination that they get a chance to kind of create it and express it. And these type of events are just perfect for that. And lastly, I'll mention Laois na Chéile, and again our partners like Siobhan here, Music Generation. They have a festival running all day from about 2:30 until 7 o'clock, and incorporated in that is a Céilí Mór as well. So there's something for everybody, and within that, at 4 o'clock, 4:30, we're launching a Young Travellers mural, and we've been working with Young Travellers, a major collaboration on this one that was sparked with the community guards and LTAG, so the Laois Traveller Action Group, and we've created a wonderful, or the kids have created a wonderful mural with the help of a wonderful street artist there called Charlie.
As you said, it's evident from the events that you've all listed that it's catering to a lot of different audiences, a lot of different preferences, and also a lot of different age groups. But Siobhan, before we finish up, one that I wanted to talk to you about that naturally caught my eye was the Creative Hub, because it seems to be set in nearly like a radio studio, and you can do the likes of podcasting, DJ skills.
Yes, so that's 85 dB Studios in Athlone, and he's working with the Athlone Family Resource Centre. Actually, he's working through them, and they're going to be running a series of workshops on sound engineering and all sorts of things in studios. That's a very exciting one as well.
And has been mentioned across the board here this evening that full details of all the Crinan Óg events taking place across the 3 counties, as well as indeed across the entire country this Saturday, June 6th, can be found on the website of Crinan Óg, and you can search by your county to make it easy as well. But if you are looking for something to do tomorrow night, you'll want to stay tuned for what's up next. You are listening to Encore with Zoe Ryan on Midlands 103. Now, have you ever been on a train, plane or any other form of transport? An announcement has been made that your journey is going to take a bit longer than intended. And how did you spend that time? Joining me now is writer and director Bernard Field, a man who chose to see the silver lining in that situation, along with actor Michael Irwin, to discuss what brings him to Birth Theatre and Arts Centre tomorrow night. Bernard, Michael, welcome to Encore.
Thanks, Zoe.
Thanks, Zoe. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, The Last Train from Holyhead. Bernard, you wrote and directed it. So tell me, where did the idea for the play come from?
It literally came from The Last Train from Holyhead. Good few years ago now. I was sitting on the last train from Holyhead one night, a couple of days between Christmas and the New Year, you know, those dark, damp days, pre-internet. So I had no phone to keep me company. I'd just got off the boat. I'd read the paper. I had nothing to do. And it was announced that the train was going to be delayed for 3 hours. It was already past midnight when I got on the train.
Oh, God.
And I wasn't going to be going anywhere for 3 hours, 3:30 in the morning. And I had literally nothing to do. And an old man got on the train and he was very grumpy about the situation. And there was one other woman on the carriage of the train. She was sleeping. And we were just faced with the prospect of sitting there for the 3 hours before the train started, and then plus 7 hours down to London. So, you know, there was a lot of time and space ahead of me. And that's how I started to write it. I just started to sketch it out. By the time I got off the train, the next morning, I had written half the play pretty much.
So how come it's taken from then to now to finally get it to the stage if it was almost nearly written by that point?
Well, I mean, I wrote it. I'm not actually sure. I think it was about 1998 when I actually wrote the play. And now it has had a few productions, Zoe. I actually first staged the play in, I think it was 2000 in London. We were living in London at the time. And we continued to live there till 2007 when we moved back to Galway. And when I came back to Galway, I immediately set up Hall Theatre Company and did a bit of a tour of the play. And then the next year, I was lucky enough to cast Mick Lally in the lead role, whose boots Michael is filling now, and filling them very well, it has to be said. And then a couple of other theatre companies took it up. So this is by no means the first time we've ridden this train, as it were.
Just the first time for the Midlands?
Yes.
And you mentioned there about Michael's character. Michael, tell me a bit about the character that you play and how they fit into the overall storyline.
Yeah, well, the character Jack that I play, and we have to be careful not to give away too much of the story in this. Of course. But he's my generation, actually. I'm nearly 70, and I lived through the same times as him. And he's come through a society that was church and state were separated, but by God, they still held hands, you know. So there was still a lot of influence going on. So he came through that generation, and when we finally see him on the train, he bears the scars of that. And I think Bernard made a great job of showing that in the characterization. Just to say about the play arriving to you for the first time, I read this play about 7 years ago, and I've been pestering Bernard ever since to do a run with it. And finally this year we got around to it. And that's part of the reason that we're out there with it now.
And Michael, what was it about the story that gripped you? You read it and you said, this is something I really want to be involved in, but why? Well,
Ireland has come through a period where there was a lot of, I wouldn't call them secrets, but there was a lot of dark stuff going on. And this refers to that time, put it that way. This is part of that whole story. And I just feel it's important to shine a light on what was happening in those days. And that's really why I pushed for it.
And Bernard, you're an actor yourself in your own right. Will you be taken to the stage on this occasion, or are you purely involved in a behind the scenes in a writer-director role?
Well, I mean, I wasn't initially supposed to be involved as an actor in this play. Unfortunately, though, the great actor we had playing the other role of Pat, he had to drop out at pretty short notice.
Okay.
And, because it was a long rehearsal process, so it would have been impossible for us to actually recruit another actor, go through the rehearsal process. That's a long-winded way of saying, yes, I am. Sorry. Yeah, I'm on the stage.
And when it comes to casting, as you said, it's really important to get that mix right. Now, I know that Michael has said he basically badgered you into giving him that role, so he was decided from the start nearly. But when it came to casting the rest of the cast, how did you go about seeking out who you wanted for it? Did you do an open call, or did you reach out to people you felt would have been suitable for the role?
I did do an open call. I was surprised at how few people kind of came forward. To be honest, I think there's a big thing now going on that's very noticeable in the last few years that actors are more gravitating towards cinema and TV. There seems to be so much work out there these days with all the streaming services, etc. Right. But having said that, the guy who initially was playing the role I'm playing now, I just bumped into him one day. I had worked with him before, and I didn't think he was still in the business, to be honest, and I hadn't seen him around for a long time. But the stars were aligned, and so he agreed to come on. He was really terrific in the role, which makes it very challenging for me. And then the other character who in the script is called Gypsy, I'd always envisaged her as Irish, or maybe Scottish at a push. But we cast an actor. She's actually Italian.
Oh.
And it was a bit of an experiment at the beginning, just to see how it would go and how the language would sit in her mouth, which has been absolutely a revelation. And she brings another sort of colour to the whole thing. And I can't help thinking that we've just been very lucky. And, some productions are like that. The gods seem to be with you, whereas everything else seems to be pushing against locked doors. But so, I've been very, very fortunate in that respect, Zoe.
And Michael, you mentioned about how, you're in your 70s now. Bernard, you've said about, you find that it's hard maybe to get actors nowadays in certain roles, that they're gravitating towards other productions. But Michael, you've stuck in there and you're still going with it. I feel like maybe the arts is an area where people don't retire at your typical 65 or 66, whatever it is nowadays. Is it something that you can ever see yourself stepping away from, or is it something you'd like to continue for as long as you can?
Gosh, no, Zoe. I was in business most of my life, and in about 2008, I sold out my business and I was retired, and I was told under no uncertain terms that I better go and find something to do. So I went back to drama, which I had been involved in university. And then about 3 years later, I did a master's in drama in NUI Galway. and got a lot out of that, worked with a lot of young people. So my main aim is to stay on stage as long as I can. I'm 69 this year, and I intend to keep here for the next 10 years if I can anyway. So I just love the theatre, and I love stage work. I also direct. I direct for our local amateur drama group as well.
Yes.
So, it's something that I love. Yeah.
And Bernard, with regards to who your target audience for this play would be, because as you know, Michael has mentioned there's some tough maybe subject lines that are tackled in it, you know, serious subject matter, but it strikes me as it could have comedic elements of it as well because of the situation that these characters find themselves in. Yeah,
I mean, there are quite a few laughs in it, I would say, you know. Depends on the audience. Or when we did it in the town hall, there was one night when the audience were just laughing all the way through, and you would have thought it was a comedy, you know. But as far as the audience we're after is concerned, it's a tricky one, that, because on the one hand, people of an older generation, you know, would realise the world of the play because they're familiar with it. But one thing that stuck out when we did it in Galway last year was that the younger generation, surprisingly, seemed to connect with it. Now, I mean, I came to sort of the conclusion afterwards that the play was kind of serving a little bit as a sort of a lesson in the history of the younger generation's parents and the world they came out of and what they had to go through. And so the younger generation actually did connect with it. Plus, it has an emotional sort of impact which crosses all generations. You cannot help be affected by some of the archetypal situations that are going on in the play in relation to parenthood and children and all that sort of stuff, which all generations everywhere, it seems to me, can always connect with.
Bernard sort of pointed it out that with young people coming to a production, it gives us an opportunity to educate people as to the society that we've left behind us. I hope we've left it behind us anyway. So I think from that point of view, art is an important part of education.
Absolutely. As you said, we've only come to where we are now because of what came before. So it's not a case of we can leave it in the past. It's that we've to, as Bernard, you've rightly said, we've to deal with it. We've to look at it and say, right, what have we learnt from this? Is this something that can happen again? Is it something we want to be replicated again? Or what can we put in place to stop it from happening again? And it is through the mediums of art that you can have those discussions.
Like, young people have no idea how recent Ireland was such a different place to live in. I mean, the transition from like the Ireland that I grew up in, Michael grew up in, to today is incredible.
And as you said, it's not actually that far away. Like my parents would have grown up in the Ireland that you're speaking of. My generation would know about it because they'd only just come out of it, and that's where the change happened. But you're right, the kind of generation of today, they're so far removed from that. And obviously it's not something that's taught in schools nearly, that they don't know that it actually happened, and they get that shock factor when they hear about it. But as you said, it wasn't in the distant past, it was in the quite recent past.
Yeah. And of course, everybody knows that the issues in this play, every family in Ireland will have been touched either directly or indirectly. I can guarantee you that. We all know about this stuff. So that shows you it's not that long ago.
So certainly it'll lead for a lot of talking points, as you said, once people have left the theatre.
Well, I think so. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, I was just thinking that an interesting thing happened the other night. We were, after the show, it was in Tuam, I think. And lots and lots of people at the end of the play started saying, well, I wonder what's going to happen next, where it's going to go next. And I think that's the beauty of the way Bernard wrote this. You're left with a puzzle as to how the particular story plays out. And everybody has a different notion of how that's going to happen. So that was really interesting.
It's the stereotypical, isn't it, that sometimes art can be a perfect vehicle to explain and to flesh out these issues in a way that's easy for people to digest. And I suppose that's what you're doing here with the play. But you're bringing it to the Midlands, you're finishing up your Irish stint, you're going to take it over to London. What is the hope then for after London? Is it a case of that you're going to put this play to bed for another while before doing a run with it? Or where would you like to see it go after that?
Well, you know, I mean, when we were discussing with the artistic director in the Cockpit Theatre in London, where we're planning to take the play, he asked me that question. And, you know, he said, is London your final destination now or what?
Yeah.
And I said, off, you know, kind of tongue in cheek, I said, well, we'd love to take it to Off-Broadway. And he, he kind of lit up at that prospect, I mean, I think there'd be an audience for it. I think it would go down certainly with the Irish diaspora in America. I think they'd understand the themes very well, and not only the Irish. Anybody from a kind of similar background that had to live through periods of discipline and indoctrination. So, I mean, to answer your question, Zoe, we'd go anywhere with this play. We'd take it to America. We'd take it to Australia. We take it back to Dublin. We'll take it back to Burr. It is a good play. I think it's a good play. And I think the fact that it has survived so long, through so many iterations and so many changes in the world, it's literally spanned, the analog age up to now. And yet it still works, That says something.
Do excuse the pun, but in summary, this isn't the end of the line for the play. You hope that it will go on, and as you say, over the years, keep being tweaked and changed for the time period that it's in.
Yeah, exactly.
Michael and Bernard, it has been a pleasure speaking to you both. Best of luck with the upcoming production in Burr. We hope that you get the audience that you're looking for and that you get the response from it, and that Last Train from Holyhead goes on to do great things in the future.
Thanks very much, Zoe. It's been a pleasure to talk to you.
Still to come.
Help is on the way, dear!
It is Encore Midlands 103 with Zoe Ryan. Now, you've just heard a clip there that may have you puzzled, but it'll all make sense very soon. Now, we're going from discussing events aimed at children to a play with an adult-only cast. Daniel Edgerton has decided to try his hand at directing Neil Simon's play Rumours in Mullingar Arts Centre later this year. He joins me now to discuss how his recent casting call went. Now, Daniel, we've just heard there from Bernard Fields that the turnout he got at his latest open call surprised him. Did you get the crowds you were expecting at the auditions for this production?
Hi, Zoe. It was very surprising. We didn't really know what to expect because, as you know, with like the arts, especially in the Midlands, there's a sort of trepidation with it. But we had great turnout. We had over nearly 50 people turn out for a play with only 10 parts in it. So, to be honest, it made our job very, very difficult. We're still kind of in the process of casting at the minute, but it was. I don't think we were necessarily prepared for it, so we had to split our open call over 2 days initially. And we got all walks of life, all age ranges, all genders. It was really, really nice to see, and it kind of goes to show that the interest was there.
And even though, as you said, maybe it was a bigger crowd than you had anticipated, it's great to see that there is interest in the locality for this type of work. But I know that you originally had said that it was open to all ages, and then kind of very last minute you made the decision to say, no, actually, we've made the creative decision that it's going to be an adult-only cast. Why was it you come to that decision?
Well, initially, when we were looking at the play, the age ranges in the cast kind of skewed a little bit older, and rather than allowing people who are still in secondary school and things like that to audition, we said it would probably make our jobs a little bit easier if we kind of stuck very kind of vehemently to the casting of the play, like the actual age of the characters. So the characters range from like 25 all the way up to 65. So we said, let's just stick with that and make our jobs easier. But in the end, we still had a massive turnout. So I kind of nearly would have dreaded to see what would happen if we had left it open. Yeah. But it worked out kind of in our favour. Because again, with such a small cast list that we don't really have the time to be going through so many people all the time. So we said, let's just cut it down. Let's make it easier for ourselves.
Yeah. And I suppose we're after jumping ahead and we've talked about the casting, but let's take a step back. And for anyone unfamiliar, can you give a quick synopsis of what the play is about?
Right, so Rumours, written by Neil Simon. It was written in 1988, and it's a farcical comedy. So farce is kind of associated with, British comedy in kind of like the 50s, 60s and 70s. And so Neil Simon spent a lot of his time over in London, so he based a lot of his ideas on that sort of style of comedy. Very quick pacing and everything. So he wrote this play called Rumours, and it is about four couples who are friends for a long, long time, going to another friend's house for the 10th wedding anniversary. And basically what happens when the first couple arrives, they find that the wife is missing, something has happened to the husband, and things aren't going well. I don't want to ruin too much because there is a little bit of a mystery at the heart of the show, and I don't want to ruin too much.
But chaos
the reason
is the
why
word.
it was called chaos is definitely the word. And the title comes from the fact that all of these friends, very rarely are all the friends on stage at the same time. So it's all this kind of hearsay and gossip about what might be happening, who is with who is, having an affair with who, or who is, doing something at their job that they shouldn't be doing, who should be, reported to the tax man, maybe, is another thing. But, so these things kind of, evolve, these rumours evolve, and they kind of compound. And all it would take a very easily fixed situation of just someone says, well, what the hell is going on? But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. And it continues like that until I will say that there is a little bit of violence, there is a little bit of...
the twist,
I'm really struggling. I don't want to say too much because it really is like a great mystery at the heart of it.
And what was it that drew you to it? Why did you decide, okay, I want to direct this play?
Well, funnily enough, so we are, the banner we're under is Little Brother Productions. And Little Brother was set up in Mullingar Arts Centre by Sean Lynch. And it was to put on amateur productions, specifically plays, but put them onto a higher standard than as high a standard as we could bring to the table. And so, funnily enough, one of the first productions, full-length productions that I ever was involved in when I was a young fella was Rumours.
Right. Okay.
We did it as a student production. And I have just such great memories of it. It was the first time I'd ever had to, do a role from start to finish, and the play is nearly like 2 hours long, and it was a big kind of formative moment for myself as an actor. And so when the conversation came around as, okay, we want to bring Little Brother back, and we want to, put on another production, and I was asked to direct, this show kept kind of rattling on in the back of my head, because funnily enough, if you ever are lucky enough to go into Sean Lynch's office in the Mullingar Arts Centre, he has posters and pictures from different shows from across the years, and one of them in the corner is the production of Rumours that I was involved in. And it just sat there in the corner every time I had a conversation with him, and then I eventually just went, sure, check it, why don't we do Rumours? Yeah. And I just kind of clicked then, and I remember I had only read it maybe a year ago, and then I went back to read it again, and I was like, this play is riotously funny. So I said, let's do this, and Sean agreed, and so then we got into this mad casting process that we're still in the middle of now.
So the people who will be casted in the characters, they've not yet been reached out to. You haven't revealed who's been chosen for the parts yet.
No, we haven't yet. We have a few people coming in this evening, because I'm currently in Mullingar Arts Centre. Okay. And we have a few people coming in this evening for the final recall to kind of, cross our T's and dot our I's when it comes to that. And we should have it cast and everyone informed by the end of this week, and hopefully go straight into rehearsals, get a reading done, and get the show on the road, as it were.
And when can we expect this production to take to the Mullingar Arts stage?
So the preliminary dates haven't gone on sale or anything yet, but the preliminary dates will be the 30th of September and then the 1st and 2nd of October. And so we are hoping that will be nothing set in stone yet, but that is kind of what we're hoping for right now.
Okay, so you have a bit of time to work on it and perfect it.
Oh, absolutely. And we were very conscious of that, it being an amateur production. You know, everyone has their lives and their jobs and their families. So we wanted to we didn't want this to become a stressful thing for people because, you know, shows and productions, you know, they tend to cause a bit of stress if you don't give yourself enough time. So that was something we were very kind of conscious of. So we allowed the whole summer. We were allowing, you know, time off, you know, people for their holidays and stuff like that. We wanted just like the script, though. This is another thing I wanted to say. The script is 120 pages long.
Wow.
So it will require a lot of work. So giving us that length of time is vital. And even realistically, the more I look at it, the more I look at my calendar, the shorter it appears to be. But I'm very much looking forward to it.
Daniel, thanks so much for giving me so much of your time this evening with it. It sounds like it's going to be a great production and definitely one that holds a special place in your heart.
Yeah, definitely. Feels so sort of full circle for me right now.
Yeah,
kind of mad.
Brilliant. Daniel, look, thanks a million for that. I better let you go so that you can finish off those rehearsals and decide the next cast members that you're going to be putting in those positions.
Absolutely. Thank you, Zoe. Thank you so much for having us on, and I hope to chat to you soon.
No problem at all. Thanks a million, Daniel. Next up, we have something a little bit different. Now, you may be familiar with Mrs. Doubtfire, but have you ever heard of Beryl?
I'm a hip old granny who could hip-hop, bebop, dance till you drop, and yo-yo make a wicked cup of coo-coo.
Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming up. It is Zoe Ryan bringing you your weekly instalment of Encore, and we really are catering for all ages on tonight's show. Joining me on the line is a guest I'm quite excited about. She is the creative behind a geriatric juggler. Yes, you heard me right, a geriatric juggler. It is circus performer Maria Corcoran. Maria, thank you for agreeing to take my call.
Thanks so much, Zoe, for having me.
Maria, I've been dying to know how you came up with the persona of Beryl. Like, how did your mind get to that place?
Well, actually, it came about originally many, many years ago when a friend had a walking stick for doing tricks with.
Okay.
And I realised that it would be a very useful tool for unicycling with, because then you could, you know, rest on it and you can do tricks pushing it off the ground, which just makes them spins and things like that a lot easier. And then trying to figure out why you would use it, and then we thought, an old woman could be using it on the unicycle. And so my first act with Beryl was a unicycle act. And then as the years went on, the character developed more and more, and it was much more about the personality, as you said, rather than the tricks.
And give us an idea of the type of acrobatics that she gets up to. You've mentioned there about the unicycle, but I know she also incorporates a couple of the kind of typical equipment you would see someone from an older generation with, like a Zimmer frame.
Yes, I do. I got a specially made Zimmer frame by a fantastic group down in Waterford called Spree. They are a company that do a lot of outdoor spectacle work, and they make a lot of amazing like sculptures and pieces for parades, like floats and things. And so when I came with the character Beryl, they said, we'll make you now a good Zimmer frame that can handle what you're up to. So I was just going through Zimmer frames. I was getting them in Argos at the time and just flying through them, because they really made for the kind of wear and tear the Beryl gets up to. So I do different tricks that you might not expect an older person to do on a Zimmer frame, and that might be getting tangled up in it, or falling and standing on top of the frame, doing a little jiggery pokery, and it's a hard one to describe by voice now, to be honest. If I could show you, you'd understand it better.
So, in summary, not really the intended way for a Zimmer frame to be used. That's how Beryl uses one.
Exactly. So it's the unexpected.
And talk to me about Beryl. Tell me a little bit about her. She's a 97-year-old coffin dodger, she's been described as.
Yes. She is an elderly woman with a lot to say. You know, she really doesn't want to fade into the background quietly, and she wants to take up space. She's a very independent woman and thinks that aging should not be this thing that we fear, or something that should be, you know, you should be ashamed of or worried about, but instead be proud to be older and be proud to take up the space that you've earned at that point in your life, and to tell people all the stories that you have and all the wisdom that you have at that age. So she is old and bold.
And where would we typically see Beryl popping up? I know that you recently performed at a care facility in Laois. So would it be typically the types of care facilities, nursing homes? Is that where Beryl tends to crop up, or do you often put her on stage elsewhere?
Well, actually, for the last few years, I've been mostly at festivals like family festivals or circus festivals, because that's the kind of world that I'm in and where Beryl kind of was formed.
Yeah.
And recently I wanted to bring it to care facilities and touch on the more, the more tender parts of Beryl. So actually this show that I'm doing recently, that I did last week in Laois, is a little bit more acting and a little less tricks. And the premise is that Beryl is a new resident in the place and she is wanting to tell her story and share her life with all the new people there. And it's something that has evolved over time now that I've performed it a few times, because it's a difficult thing for people as they age to then go into a nursing home. And it's a big change and upheaval in their life. And I've noted that from talking to people. But then actually when they get in, sometimes they can make some amazing new friends. And once they settle in and you're around a community of people who really get you and know what it's like to be old. And so far, I'm very lucky that the places I've gone to, the staff have been amazing as well. So I think if people are able to embrace that part of this chapter of their life, it can be a new, exciting place to move to rather than a fearful place. That's what I hope comes with this show, that Beryl comes in and she's trying to impress all her new friends and she entertains them, and she also shares their story and wants to hear their stories in return. So she's really settling into this new chapter of her life.
And how is Beryl generally received by audiences, especially the ones in the likes of the care facilities? How do they generally take her?
Fantastic so far, anyway. So the way this recent show is working is that I enter as myself and then I transform into Beryl. So I do it in front of them. I put on the wig, I put on the makeup. So it's very clear that it is someone dressed up. And I think this has helped as a device to just make sure that people really get that it's all a play and it's all meant to be a pretend scenario, because I think it can be a little bit confusing. And in the past, when I've just come in straight as Beryl, people can sometimes be a little bit confused. And I think if you're confused, you're not laughing. So then to eliminate any element of confusion, and it's been working great.
I had wondered that, because I was wondering, especially with the likes of the care facilities, if she comes in just dressed fully as she is, which is very convincing. I have seen the photographs. I was going, do the residents quite understand that she's not actually a new resident? So as you've explained there, to avoid any confusion, you actually get into character in front of them. So fantastic idea there. Great foresight. But how is it that you got into circus yourself? Because I believe I'm right in saying that isn't exactly what you originally studied in college. You found your way to circus.
Yeah, exactly. And it was through my studies in college that I found my way. I was studying environmental science and health in DCU, and they had a fantastic juggling society, which I joined and have never looked back since. It was all very peer-led, workshops among friends. And then there's circus conventions in Ireland about 4 or 5 times a year. So I would go to them, and sometimes they would have master classes of people from abroad or even in Ireland. And I've also travelled abroad to do workshops. So it's kind of slowly over the years building up the skills and the contacts and learning how to perform with all those skills as well.
And so Beryl is just one of the characters that you perform, but I know you're involved in a number of different projects. There's the Strong Ladies in Science. Tell me about that.
Yeah, Strong Women Science is a show run by Circus 250. They're the production company, and we go to a lot of schools and sometimes museums and the likes of the BT Young Scientist exhibition, or Blast, which is another similar kind of program for schools doing science exhibitions. And yeah, we perform this show which basically teaches the science behind the circus tricks. So we demonstrate circus tricks and then we explain what it is that is happening behind the scenes, or scientifically.
A common thread that I'm getting from your performances is that it's not only just to entertain, but there's a strong and important hidden message behind these characters.
Yeah, there's always a desire to go a little bit deeper than to just entertain. You know, that I always aim to just leave people thinking a little bit more, or, you know, I suppose have, as you said, a hidden message. I try to always have some element of story or, narrative around the tricks.
Maria, as I said to you earlier, the second that I saw the character of Beryl, it caught my eye and I said, I'm absolutely obsessed and I need to talk to the creative behind this. So I'm delighted that you have agreed to come on the show. It's been fantastic chatting about Beryl and your other work. To me, straight away when I saw it, I went, this is very Mrs. Doubtfire-esque. Do you often get comparisons to Mrs. Doubtfire, or do you think people see it as a completely different entity?
Interesting. I haven't heard that one in a while now. I have heard it before, but not in a long time. I've been compared to a few others now whose names I often don't know. They're like, BBC, early BBC days and this kind of thing. But no, that's an interesting one now.
Fantastic. Maria, thank you so much again for talking to me about your fantastic persona that is Beryl and your other work. And I look forward to seeing Beryl maybe making a comeback to the Midlands in the near future.
Yeah, me too. Hopefully she'll be back gallivanting around.
Fantastic. Maria, thank you again for giving me so much of your time this evening.
Great, Zoe. Thanks so much for having me.
And you can find out more about Maria and her upcoming performances on her website, mariacorcoran.com, and she is at circo.coranco on social media. Now, I'm just after seeing on social media myself that Mullingar Arts Centre have put up that they are doing another open call for auditions, this time for students aged 16 and up, and that is for their upcoming productions of Steel Magnolias and also The Unexpected Guest. So two very exciting ones there. So if you did miss out on auditioning for Rumours and maybe you weren't the right age group, that is definitely one to look into. And little shout out as well to our very own Ronan Berry, who's after texting in to say he was actually involved in a production of Rumours himself some years ago, and that he did enjoy my selection of Rumours, the song afterwards for Rumour Have It from Adele. Do you know what? I'm not going to lie, Ronan, I too was bopping here behind the mic. So that's it for me this evening. There's nothing more on my list today. It's been a very busy show. We have a couple of very busy shows coming up in the coming weeks as well. It's just one of those times of the year where there's loads of plays on and loads happening. So we'll be bringing you, as we do every week, what's happening in the arts in your area. But I will also be covering the environmental and sustainability show Let's Go Green on Monday night for Aisling O'Rourke, and I will be back in this seat again on Thursday night. Up next, it's Joe Cooney with Country Roads.